Hi there, my name is Olivia Weichel, and I'm going to walk you through the next steps of updating and finishing up your Collection Builder digital collection. So you've just finished editing your config YAML file, so your site is up and running, but you need to do a little bit more editing and configuring to get it looking good and reflecting the content you have in there. So the next steps for doing that are to come up here and click on your _ data directory. And at the bottom of this directory, you'll find the file theme.yaml. So go ahead and click on that and click the little edit pencil here so we can edit this file. So this file is separated into sections that reflect the sections of your website that are up here in the navigation bar. So the very first section we're going to start with is the home page. And the first variable that we're going to edit is the featured image. So the featured image is what goes up here at the top of your homepage, and it's just an image that reflects your collection. It should be a JPEG, preferably it'll look the best if it's a sort of horizontal JPEG. And the best way to find an image and to take the object ID from that image to plug into your theme file is to go to the browse page, kind of scroll through and find one that looks good to you. I'm actually happy with this one right here. And to grab that object ID, I'm just going to come up here to the URL and copy the very end where the object ID is located. Then I'm going to paste it back into my theme file and move on down. So I can also adjust the padding of that featured image if I want it to be larger or smaller from top to bottom. And the default is 8. I'm going to change it to 12. Home banner image position also adjusts the featured image in terms of where it's located. So if it's positioned at the top or the bottom of the image or in the center. In this case, I think the center is just fine for this image because that's where the interesting part of the image is taking place. So I'm going to leave it blank so that it just defaults to center. Carousel height. So you can find the carousel a little bit farther down on your home page right here, and say that this is just, you think it might be a little bit too short and you want that to be just a little bit taller. You can change that from 300 to 400. Your featured subjects are going to be over on the right side of the page. So we have these little subjects and locations boxes here that reflect the top subjects in the collection. Now you can edit this yourself and add customize or what you think should be the featured subjects. So maybe they're not the most common subjects in the collection, but you've looked through and think that they are the most important. You could type them in right here and separate them with a semicolon. However, for this collection, I think just letting it automatically generate is just fine. And so I'm just going to tell it that it needs to generate 5 featured subjects. These are the most frequent subjects in the collection, and I'm okay with that. I'm doing the same thing with featured locations, although maybe I'll just change this 3 to 5 so that these 2 little cards right here can have equal amounts of content in them. Now my about page. There's also a featured image on the about page, and this, you can see what's in there now is just a URL to a location of an image somewhere else that's not an object ID. It's not an item in the collection. So you are welcome to use that instead of an object ID for both the about page featured image as well as the home page featured image. In this case, this image doesn't really make sense with my collection, so I'm just going to go find another object ID that I can use instead. And I'll just go ahead and use this one. So I'm just copying this over and pasting over the content that was there. The browse page we will configure in a different spot, so you don't need to worry about that. The next thing we'll look at though is the item page. So on the item page, you can adjust whether or not the browse buttons appear on it. So if I go back over here, find an item, these are the browse buttons we're talking about. So right now they're appearing because the value for this field is true. I could change it to false and then they wouldn't appear, but they're just allowing me to go back and forth between my collection items, and I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a good functionality, so I'm going to keep it as true. My subjects page, I will edit a little bit though. So if I click over on subjects, you can see I have a word cloud here, quite a big word cloud, lots of items in it. And so the first thing I'm looking at is the subjects field. So these are the metadata fields that I want to appear in this word cloud. So it's not just automatically subject. For it to be subject, you need to include the field subject here. Right now, in addition to the subject appearing in the word cloud, we also have the metadata field creator appearing too. So you can see that is reflected in some of the names that appear in this word cloud. Just to switch things up a little bit, I'm gonna switch out creator for actually I'm just gonna add another field here called item information. I know this is a metadata field in the collection, and I think it might be interesting in the word cloud. So now I have 3 different metadata fields in the word cloud, and they're all separated by a semicolon. So keep in mind when you do put multiple fields in, just separate those by a semicolon. When I'm deciding how many times I want a word to need to appear in the collection in order to be included in the word cloud, I can do that with the subjects min field here. So right now it's just set to 1, so a word has to appear once in order to be included in the word cloud. But if I want that word cloud to be a little bit smaller, which it is pretty large right now, maybe I'll just bump this up to 3. So that's going to really have an effect on how many words appear in that word cloud. It'll filter them a little bit. And then finally, subject stop words. So if there's a word in here that I don't think needs to be included in this word cloud, I can very easily make it go away by typing it in here. So say I don't want Psychiana staff to appear. I can just type that in there, and then once I commit this file, I won't see that word appear anymore. Locations page, it works exactly the same as the subjects cloud. So if I click on locations, I have another word cloud here, this time just with the locations field. So I have a couple options. This looks like a pretty small word cloud. Maybe it's not a necessary visualization for this collection, in which case I can show you later how to take out locations from the navigation bar up at the top. I could also change this out to be a different field that might be useful to view in a word cloud. In this case, I'm just going to leave it, and we'll take out the locations page later so you can see how to do that. So we'll take a look now at the map page. Now, the first things I'm going to look at in the map are how far I'm zoomed in and where the center of my map should be. So you can see when I'm zoomed in that far, I'm missing things out on the right and to the bottom that the user might not even know exist because I'm not zoomed in enough. So I think maybe looks like I'm catching everything if I'm about right here and zoomed in this far. And I just happen to have some data here that I can put in to get my center of the map about in the center of the country. And then I'm going to change, so all I'm editing there is just the latitude and longitude. And then I'm just going to change the zoom level so I'm zoomed out a little bit more. And I can also change the map base. So your users have the opportunity to change the map base themselves, but you can also change the default map base. So here I am at Esri World Street Map, but I can do National Geo or Esri imagery as well. I'm happy with this. So I'm not going to change this value right here, but you're free to choose from these 3 right here. Map search, this is just turning on the functionality of being able to search the map. So if I click on that magnifying glass and type in Robinson, it's going to pull up all of the items that have Robinson somewhere in their metadata. Click on one of them and it pulls up the item for me over here. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave map search as true. I can also adjust the fuzziness of the search or the fact that these are little clusters rather than pins by changing map search fuzziness or map cluster. And I'm happy with those being clusters, so I'm not going to change them, but you can turn it off very easily with true or false. And then the map cluster radius is just how many items you want to be clustered into one of the little clusters. So I'm happy with it. This might be something you only rarely edit, or maybe it's something that you're really particular about and want to edit it a lot. In either case, you can come back to that and edit that too. The timeline page, so this section of the theme file is going to update this little year dropdown here. So I have two options. I can either manually put in the years that I want to navigate through in that dropdown, or I can just have it automatically generate and give it the increments that I want it to generate at. So 5 is usually the standard, and it works pretty well for this collection. We have two outliers. One happens to be in 1902 and one in 2019, but the middle are all sort of gathered between 1935 and 1950. So I'm pretty happy with this dropdown. I probably won't change it, but if I did want to, I would just follow these examples right here and change it that way. The data, so you can customize what sort of data gets downloaded. So again, as Devin said, this is a collection. With our collections, we like to really delve into this idea of collections as data and make it easy for other users and researchers to download that data and do great stuff with it, do research with it that is beyond what this collection is doing. So there are two ways to download the data. You can do it directly from the data page by clicking on download data. And here you'll find descriptions of all the data files in CSV and JSON formats. You can also download them from the home page directly by clicking on these collections as data buttons at the bottom. So in the theme file, you can adjust two of these data downloads. The first one is the metadata CSV or metadata JSON, and the second one is the facets JSON. So the metadata CSV or metadata JSON, if you click on it, you can take a look and see that it's just listing the objects in your collection and all of the metadata fields that are associated with them. And you can control which fields appear for each object by editing the content of the metadata export fields section here. So typically a good thing to do is to go look at your metadata CSV that you set up, called Psychiana CSV in this case. So if I come over here, I have my CSV pulled up in the same repository, just in a new little tab here. And my first row I know is my fields, my metadata fields, titles. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the whole first row. Highlight it, copy it, and then come back here, and within the quotation marks, I'm just going to paste in that first row of metadata. So now I know that it's going to be that my user is going to be able to download all of my metadata that I have put into the collection. If there was, say, a field that I didn't want them to download, I could easily get rid of it by just deleting that field from this string of fields. So say for some reason I don't want them to, I don't want my users to be able to access the data in related publication, I can just delete that and continue on with the rest of the metadata how it is. Metadata facets fields allow you to pick just a few fields and see how the values of those fields sort of compare to each other. So if I click on facets JSON here, you can get an idea. The fields that are in here now are, the first one is subject. So you can see many of the subjects in this collection appear once, a few of them appear a few more times, because this is just a subset of our bigger Psychiana collection. But you can get an idea still of how this is working. And if I scroll down even more, I get to the next field, which is creator. And I can see, these two creators appear quite a bit in this little subsection, while the others don't appear quite as much. Format is useful as well to see how many PDFs, how many JPEGs, and so on I have in the collection. So this serves sort of two purposes. You might come here to kind of get an idea of what you want to highlight in your collection, because this is a good way to quickly sort of visualize what subjects are sort of rising to the top, appearing the most frequently. But you can also control what gets output here too, very easily by deciding if you want to put any other or take out any of these fields that are in here automatically and put any others in. So for instance, maybe you think date is a really important one, so I'm going to add that one in, and then that one will appear along with the rest in that facets output. The last section of the theme is just advanced options. So at this point, we have successfully updated each of the sections that appear in the navigation bar. That's pretty much where you can stop when you're just creating your website for the first time. As far as advanced options go, they just allow you to update a few things like the navigation bar, using Bootstrap's themes, updating the theme of the website using Bootstrap again, and Bootswatch, and then updating the font size and the font color. So those are things that maybe you'll come back to at the end, or you can play around with now. It's great to just sort of take a look at how they work, but I won't be using them in this case. So now I'm going to say, write a little commit message. It says update theme, and go ahead and commit my changes. And now that I've committed these, they'll be showing up on my website pretty soon. If you were doing this yourself, you might stop after every single section and commit your changes and then go look at them on the site, especially if you're kind of playing around with things. Say you're not quite sure how tall the carousel should be, so you want to do a couple commits and then check the website to see how it's looking before you move on to the next section. And that's a perfectly fine way to work as well, and is maybe easier if you're really down in the weeds and editing your site in that way. So I'm going to go check the site here and see. And my updates have been made. So I have my featured image, it's appearing. My carousel is larger now. I have more locations appearing over here. My subjects cloud is a lot smaller because I changed the frequency that a word has to reach before it can appear in the word cloud. Locations cloud looks the same. My map has changed too once I refresh the page. So it's in the center, and I'm zoomed out enough that my user can tell where all of my items are coming from. Timeline, nothing's changed there. The about page, you can see the featured image has been updated. So that's it for now. I'll come back in a second and we can work on configuring the other things that we need before we can finish up this site.